If you're thinking about moving to Santa Clarita in 2026, this is everything you actually need to know before you buy here because it is a great place to live. But there are a few things about Santa Clarita that can really change your day to day experience if you don't understand them up front. One of the biggest misconceptions about Santa Clarita is that it's just one city, but it's not. It's actually made up of a bunch of different areas like Valencia, Saugus, Canyon Country, Newhall, even Castaic, all the places you heard of. Now, each one of those offers a totally different lifestyle depending on what it is that you're looking for. And that's why it's important to understand that up front so you can really be informed and make an informed decision on which part of Santa Clarita actually fits you best. Because on paper, Santa Clarita looks incredible. It's safe, great schools, more space, but the details do matter. So in this video, I'm going to break that down for you. What people love, what surprises buyers after they move here, and how to figure out if it's actually the right fit for you. And real quick, if you're thinking about making a move here, whether that's tomorrow in the next 6 to 12 months, my wife Sherry and I help a lot of buyers relocate to Santa Clarita from places like Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena, the Valley. We've both actually grown up here. I've actually been here since there was only 3 high schools. Now there's 7. I was actually in high school when they finally built the mall. That's how long I've been here. And, obviously we've seen firsthand how much the area has grown and changed over time. We've actually been one of the top teams out here for over a decade. So we've seen pretty much everything that can happen in real estate so far, knock on wood. But if you have any questions about neighborhoods, commute, schools, or just where to start, all of our info is below. Please message us, reach out anytime. Now, first, let's talk about why so many people are actually moving out here in the first place. Santa Cruz itself is about 220, 230,000 people and closer to 300,000 when you include surrounding areas like Stevenson Ranch, Castaic, even Acton, Agua Dulce, if we're including. They're technically not part of Santa Clarita, but we kind of include them when we're talking about Santa Clarita as a whole. So it's not actually small, but it still feels really suburban. And most people are coming here for more space, newer homes, better neighborhoods, and honestly, you're just getting more bang for your buck out here when it comes to homes. Now, let's share this chart. I went and took everything that's closed so far this year in Santa Clarita. And took all the areas that make up Santa Clarita and some of the other cities that a lot of people are moving from. So if we put some of these numbers, behind that, look at what Canyon Country's at, 792,000, about 2,100 square feet. Castaic, 812 with about 2,200 square feet. Saugus, 859, 2,200 square feet. You got Valencia at 952 with 2,500 square feet. That square footage is the average square footage of what's sold so far this year. That's, the average median price with the average square footage. Then obviously, if you compare that where places are moving from, Burbank is 1.3 for only 1,700 square feet, 1.57 in Glendale, 1.67 in Pasadena. You can see pretty quickly why Santa Clarita makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. A lot of people aren't just moving for bigger houses, they're moving to get away from the density and the noise and the stress of, other parts of LA. But the 2 biggest drivers that we hear the most past what you can get for home value is schools and safety. Across the board, the schools out here are just really solid. Let's share. I'm sure you've looked these up, but this is greatschools.org. Look at that map. Almost everything on there is a 9 or a 10. I'm trying hard to even find an 8 with my eyes. That's pretty impressive. It's not like you're trying to find the one good school. You've got multiple high schools like West Ranch, Valencia, Saugus, all really high. I think all those are rated a 10 right now. And overall, it's just really consistent across the board. Honestly, if you look around here, it's hard to even find, like I said, an 8, but most of our schools are 8, 9s, or 10s. That is pretty darn impressive. And Santa Clarita is consistently ranked as one of the safest cities, not just in California, but even nationally for cities its size. I remember growing up, we were ranked top 10 in the nation at one point. We were always known for that. I mean, it's not perfect. There's still things that happen, but obviously, it's just always one of the top 5 safest cities in California, depending on the report. And when you compare that to lots of other parts of LA, it's not even close. And another thing that really stands out here, a quantifiable thing that we can look up as realtors, is how many people actually own their own home. The owner occupied rate is pretty high compared to a lot of parts of LA, meaning that more of the homes out here, the owner actually lives in versus it being rented out. So with that, you get, these neighborhoods that tend to feel a little more stable and established, and you really see a pride of ownership in the neighborhoods. But one of the things that Santa Clarita really stands out as or with is the lifestyle. We've got paseos and miles of walking, biking, jogging, hiking trails. They all connect, interwoven throughout the neighborhoods. They connect to the parks, they even connect to the shopping centers and all the open space. There's over 100 miles of trails and paseos out of here. And people actually do use them. I mean, it's very common to see bikers, joggers, strollers, on the trails. And actually, one of the cooler things is they don't even interact with the streets a lot. Some of them have their own bridges over or under the streets, so the kids don't have to go through crosswalks and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Another thing that a lot of people out here don't realize is that Santa Cruz actually owns over 14,000 acres of open space surrounding the city, which is a big reason it doesn't feel like you're packed into, LA. We are LA County, by the way. So we've got hills, space, views. It just feels open, and the city is actively trying to keep and maintain that open space, even with all the new construction. Another huge one actually is Santa Clarita is consistently ranked as having some of the best parks in the country. You definitely feel that if you go to the parks like I do. My son is now 12. We've been, since he grew up, we've been going to all the parks, but they've got huge community parks, sports complexes, playgrounds, splash pads, aquatic centers, tons of kids leagues, adult leagues. The sports scene here is huge. Heart baseball is a big deal. Football is a big deal. Dance and different competitions are such a big deal out here. It's pretty cool and impressive. And the actual parks, actually, I'll get into that in a few minutes. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to go back to share. Here's some just examples, some of the parks in Santa Clarita. These are all actually Santa Clarita parks. I just Googled that and looking at the images, but they're doing a good job with the cool play structures, the shade. Then the ground all has that like really soft, squishy foam pad that you're stepping on. Feels like the greatest shoe you ever wore in your life. But it's really easy to plug in this lifestyle. Most neighborhoods have one of these cool parks, nearby for sure. Then we've also got Castaic Lake. There's boating, jet skiing, fishing, or if you haven't seen up there, there's picnic benches. They've got little beaches. They've got these picnic areas. Super, super cool. I mean, the boating scene out here is a huge deal for sure. Lots of RV parking out here. Lots of 3-car garages that people could fit their boat into, the third car tandem garage. And then on top of all that, actually I had the paseos here loaded up here too. So you can see what the paseos look like. They do not interact with the roads. They're their own thing. You can download the map and it shows through the city, all the routes and everything. Super cool. And then what I was gonna say is you're less than an hour to the Ventura beaches, and even Mountain High is maybe a little bit over an hour these days. Back in the day, it was under. But I've literally woken up, headed out to Ventura, been in the water surfing, came home, we turned around, and we're back on Mountain High that night snowboarding. There are not many places in the world that is an option that you can do. Another thing that's actually really cool and convenient is just access to LA. I'm 30 minutes to Burbank Airport, obviously without traffic. Hollywood, nightlife, same thing without traffic. You can make that in 30 minutes. We're only 30 something miles from Dodger Stadium and Crypto. Literally just went to a Laker game a couple weeks ago. We made it down there in 36 minutes. It's all of this obviously without traffic, but it's not that far. So you're still getting all the LA stuff. We're still LA fans out here. I mean, not the Clippers, but just kidding. Sorry. And another thing that people don't really expect is that's a big deal here is horses. That's a big scene out here. There's areas with horse property, boarding, riding trails. You can easily plug into that. If you're into that, it's something, Santa Clarita offers that a lot of other parts of LA just doesn't. And this might sound like a small thing, but I'm going to share my screen again. But driving around just feels different. The medians are clean. There's trees everywhere. The city has really done a really good job. Actually, I'm gonna back this up real quick because I know when it turns the corner. This is one of those sky bridges that you're looking at that connects the paseos, so kids can be riding their bike. They don't have to go through the crosswalk. I mean, I don't know how many of these there are. I'm going to guess dozens, if not 100, but they're throughout this city. So you can just stay on the paseo trails, the paseo systems, and you don't have to cross a major street. Super cool. And the city has just done a really good job of maintaining this. I know this is a big thing for them. I grew up out here, and Canyon Country maybe wasn't being taken care of as good as the Valencia side where I grew up in Canyon Country, but they've done a great job over the years of trying to make this feel throughout the city. And I'm very appreciative of it. It just feels nice driving around, feels maintained. It doesn't feel like you're in LA. So, really, to understand how this all works, Santa Clarita isn't just one thing, it's actually all of it. It's made up of Saugus, Canyon Country, Newhall, Valencia, kind of how we talked about earlier. I'm going to share this custom map I made here. And I made this on Google. I built this custom map that shows how all the areas lay out. Plus, it's got parks, schools, trails, all that. So I can throw this up. The link will be down below. You can click on and off the areas if you don't know them by now. You can click on Newhall, Canyon Country. It shows everything. And then what's really cool is, whoops, let's disconnect there. I added junior high and high schools, all the elementary schools. We did some notable shopping because people always ask me where's Sprouts, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. We added family fun places. Obviously, we have Magic Mountain out here, but there's also MB2 trampoline parks. We added just some of the things that me and my family like to enjoy. I made some of the better playgrounds. We added some date night spots that me and my wife like to go to. So that's kind of all in there. If like I said, the link will be below, you can check that out. But one of the best ways I like to describe, let me off click this, describe Santa Clarita is it's like a slice of pizza with the 5 and the 14. The 5 side is Valencia, the 14 side is Canyon Country. Newhall is kind of the tip of the pizza, while Saugus is the middle to back crust. Copper Hill, if you've heard of that, is kind of the back of the pizza. Houses go up into the hills there, and technically Saugus runs off, through Placerita. I'm sorry, San Francisco, and all the way back. So that's why when you look at the map, it runs. But really, where the homes end there is kind of the end of Santa Clarita. So depending on where you land on the pizza, though, your day-to-day life can feel completely different. Each of these areas does have its own feel. Valencia is more central and master planned. It's one of the more polished, built out areas. A lot of the homes there are newer. There's still some stuff from the 70s, 80s over by the hospital, but a lot of the stuff is post 2000 and newer. And, like we talked about before, but the median's around 950,000 and around 2,300 square feet. And, just it feels a lot newer, depending on what part of Valencia. Stevenson Ranch, however, is great for commuters. That's where most of the commuters want to get to. It feels a little more tucked in, polished. It's definitely a little older than Valencia. They average, everything in there is like the 90s. That has the highest median of Santa Clarita, around 1.2 million, but average square footage is more around 2,800 square feet. But obviously everything is in the 90s. You can get some sellers that haven't upgraded since 2002. As the turnover's happening now, some of those can feel a little dated versus the newer stuff in Valencia that's been built in the 2015. Saugus is definitely more residential, a little deeper into the crust, so to speak. A lot of families do like that because it feels a little more neighborhood driven, a little bit more removed from the busier parts. The median there is more like 850, around 2,200 square feet. But the homes definitely can be older. They average in the 90s, but a lot of them are even older than that. There's definitely some stuff from 60s and 70s kind of in that back, off like Seco area. Canyon Country definitely gives you more variety. There's a bunch of different neighborhood types. There's more price points. It's kind of all over the place because there is Sand Canyon with horse property and the, 5,000 square foot mansions and ranches. It can be a really good fit just because the single family home median right now is under 800. So it is our best price point in Santa Clarita, averaging around 2,100 square feet. And the years can vary. There's a lot of stuff there in the 80s. Newhall is one of the areas that feels the most different. It has the most character, more charm. There are some older homes there than some of the other parts of Santa Clarita because that original um, Happy Valley, if you've heard of that, that area feels, very not track homey. It doesn't feel like other parts of Santa Clarita that's so cookie cutter. There are a lot of custom homes, kind of has a vibe more like, maybe Encino, Sherman Oaks type thing with the original custom homes in there. The median in there is still at 829, averaging about 2,100 square feet, but you just get some stuff that is a little more custom or stuff built more in like the 70s. We've got Castaic, more space, a little quieter, a little more separated from the core of Santa Clarita and some of the shopping. The median out there is about 800,000, 2,200 square feet. I will say a lot of people, I'm going to go back to the map real quick. We meet a lot of people that say they don't want to move to Castaic. It's not something they're considering when they want other parts of Santa Clarita. But I will say, if you're a commuter on the 5, you can get to Castaic quicker than you can get to some parts of Saugus. That is a reality for some people. So something to keep in mind, because I know a lot of people go like, oh, we don't want to go there, but you definitely are getting more bang for your buck out there. And the commute isn't as bad as people really tend to think it is. So, just hearing some of those numbers, you can tell it's not really about which area is better. It's about which one fits your lifestyle, your commute, and your budget best. Now, there's a few things that do tend to surprise people when they move out here. And one thing that does catch people off guard a lot, and it takes a while to get used to, is how the roads are laid out. We're not on a grid system. I honestly think that the city never thought we would be this big, so the roads were just never intended to connect, and they had to make them connect over time. So as they expanded and trying to ease up traffic, so it is kind of strange. They do wind around. And go back to the map real quick and look at some of these main streets. It really does look like someone threw some spaghetti at a wall. Legitimately, they do just kind of wind around. Now, the upside to that is because a lot of the roads are newer. We're talking 3 lanes or more at times, over 50-mile-an-hour speed limits on many of the main roads. But the trade-off, unfortunately, is the lights. A lot of intersections have the protected left arrow, so you can get stuck at a red light for a couple of minutes at a time. And if you hit a few of those, that's where your commute really starts to feel longer than it looks on a map. Another thing I hear about as far as what people don't like is that there's not really a lot of nightlife going on. I mean, we don't have any clubs. The restaurants tend to shut down kind of early. I mean, there's some, but that is a thing. There's not a lot of nightlife going on. And another thing, as I go through some of the other complaints I hear, is that it does feel a lot hotter out here than a lot of other parts of LA. Maybe not so much if you're from the valley, but if you're from, parts of LA that are closer to the beach, it's definitely going to feel warm here. Probably one of the biggest things that we hear about is that people really focus too much on the home and not really where and how they want to live. And I see that, if you're not from here and you come out here and you're looking at homes, then some of the bigger, newer homes can feel very appealing, and you didn't really process which neighborhood that you wanted to be in, and you just really focus on the house. Now, I grew up out here, and all these negatives that we hear, they are true. When we were younger, it was boring out here. When I was in my 20s, we were always going down to Hollywood, parts of the valley. We're trying to get out of here. It was boring. I mean, back in the day, Fridays was the only real hangout we had, as miserable as that sounds. But the funny thing is, a lot of us came back or are still coming back, especially once priorities change. You start thinking about lifestyle, family, space, schools. You realize what Santa Clarita has and offers is pretty special, and it just makes more sense. It has changed a lot over the years, and it is getting better. It's not the same place it used to be. Traffic is getting worse, but some of those other negatives, with all the chain restaurants and the cookie cutter stuff, I think that's improving dramatically. We've got a few breweries. There's a lot of local mom and pop owned restaurants and things to do, just better food in general, a lot more going on. And that does lead to something else that does stand out. People do stay here. You see neighbors and kids outside and families at parks and people jogging and running on the paseos like we talked about. Bike riding is a big deal out here. It does just feel connected. The sports scene is incredible. My son's in baseball right now. That camaraderie through the families doing that, and with my other friends that have their kids in basketball or football or dance, that's a big deal. That becomes your tribe, and you find and connect with people if you enjoy doing these types of things. Santa Clarita does feel like it's in a bubble. That is something we hear, but I think it's in a bubble in the best kind of way, because between the parks and the youth sports and the community events, the neighborhoods, feeling connected, it does feel like people actually do know each other. Honestly, there's a lot more going on out here than people really do give us credit for too, because we've got like concerts in the park and the food truck events and the different brewery events going on. Central Park always has a lot of stuff going on. There's dog parks everywhere. There's the stairs at Central Park, and they're building a new park off of Plum Canyon. I can't think of the name of that, but I see that they're putting the stairs in there, and that thing's always packed. If you're see it from the street, it just looks like ants coming up and down constantly. There's always people going up and down those things. It's a pretty active community, and it's just built into living here. It feels a little more predictable here. It feels more structured. And for a lot of people, I think that's exactly what they want. They're trying to get out of the denser, more populated parts of LA. And because we have the open space, it obviously is dense and populated here, but I think it feels more open. And of course, we do have to talk about cost. That is a feature out here. Look back at that, my um my averages here. And I'll include a link to this down below. So if anybody wants to look at this, or here, if you could pause on the screen, actually, why don't we just say do that? I think this is a factor. We're not cheap, but our dollar does just stretch differently here. That is real. More house, more space. What $1 million gets you here versus LA is very different. And I think the one thing you'll definitely hear about when you start looking here, if you haven't heard about this yet, is something called Mello-Roos. And in Santa Clarita, that can be a really important piece of the monthly payment, depending on the area and the home. It's not automatically bad. I think it's got a negative connotation to it, and people look at it like it's a bad word. It's something you want to understand before you buy. I actually break that down in another video. We have some old videos on our channel if you want to look it up to understand what it is, but I'm going to break that down for 2026 as the next video. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. I'll give you an explanation. It's just a higher tax rate in some of the neighborhoods. It isn't everywhere. So there are neighborhoods that you can avoid having it and avoid paying it, but it does exist. So something just to be aware of. Look, at the end of the day, if you're thinking about moving out here, don't just shop for the house, shop for your lifestyle. Think about how you actually want to live day to day. Do you want to be close to the Whole Foods or the mall or Trader Joe's? Do the kids need to be able to walk or bike to school? Do you need quick freeway access? Or would you rather have a little more space and don't mind being deeper into the pizza, into the valley? Santa Clarita is kind of the classic suburban trade done really well. More space, more safety, better schools in exchange for a little more distance, a little more heat, and a quieter social scene. Because the right fit here is incredible, but the wrong fit can feel very different day to day. If you want help trying to figure out which part of Santa Clarita or Castaic fits you best, reach out anytime. We'd be happy to help. My automatic lights just went off right at the end here. Check out the next videos. I dive into that Mello-Roos. And of course, if you have any questions on neighborhoods, cost of living, homes, anything, by all means, please reach out to us. Talk to you soon.